It seems like it's been 40 weeks since you got 40 winks. Your back pain? Unbearable. Tossing, turning, trying to find that pain-free position. And that's the moment you realize you can't spend another waking moment putting off treatment.
The Joint and Spine Center is Cincinnati's leading destination for spine care, with a ton of surgical and non-surgical treatments for back pain. So when a moment has the power to change the rest of your life, go to the one place with the power to change it for the better, the Christ Hospital Health Network. This changes everything.
The Pound This Podcast is brought to you by the Christ Hospital Health Network. This is the Pound This Podcast, episode 745, The Benefits of a Running Club with Jen Loving.
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This Podcast with Amanda Valentine.
Hello, friends. Before we get into this amazing conversation with Jen from Fleet Feet, all about running, learning how to run, running with friends, running clubs, run coaching, I want to talk to you about a different kind of coach, and that's health coaching with my friend Sarah and Team Fit with Me. Sarah and her team of people are amazing health coaches that want to help you reach your goals, whatever those goals are, whether it's putting on muscle, getting stronger, losing weight, working with your digestive issues, or maybe your autoimmune disorders. Sarah can get you right there and teach you everything you need to know and get you where you need to be. So check her out right now. You can get 10% off month one of all packages, plans, and add-on services when you go to teamfitwithme.com/poundthis. You're going to find all of that information in the show notes. Now, let's get to Jen. Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This Podcast. I am Amanda Valentine, my guest today, with another, similar to a Valentine's, Jen Loving.
That's right.
See, it's a perfect little match here,
That's
Valentine
right.
and Loving. So this is your second time on the podcast.
Yes.
And the first time did COVID even happen yet?
No.
I'm not even sure it had.
Like this podcast, you had just gotten this table, I think.
Oh, yeah. So we're at
Yeah.
the gym at Cincy 360 Fitness. And so I had just left the radio station and just came here. So it must have been January, February of 2020.
Yes.
And
So yeah, pre-COVID.
oh, man.
I know.
Lots happened since last time you were on the podcast. So explain to everybody that may have missed that. I mean, that was probably several hundred episodes ago.
Yeah.
Who you are, what you do, all that fun
Sure.
stuff.
So I am Jen Loving, and I am the training program director for Fleet Feet Cincinnati. And so I oversee all of the participants training for a 5K, 10K, half and full.
How long have you been doing that for?
Oh gosh, I was with Fleet Feet as a participant in 2015. Loved it so much that I got a part-time job in the fall, and then I think I took over a training program in 2017 or 18. It all kind of blurs together.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just is a constant. Been constantly training since 2015 or
Dang.
something.
What was your job before that?
Let's see. I was a camp counselor for type 1 diabetes children's program.
Oh, cool.
That was very cool. So I've got 2 of my 3 kids have type 1 diabetes. And so they used to, pre-COVID, have this nice little overnight camp for a week where you could send your kids and they were completely taken care of. And a local hospital would bring their residents and doctors and nurses, and they would come and staff it. So it was like, essentially they were in a hospital, but in a camp doing fun stuff and living life and learning how to take care of their diabetes. And so I would send my kids off there, and little did I know that I would then be in charge of it one day. So that was really weird. So it was one of those where I would get respite for a week of taking care of my kids because I was sending them to the camp, to all of a sudden becoming camp director, and now I'm in charge of 200 type 1 diabetics. So then I was like, well, I know how important it is for all the parents to have that week of vacation, I guess you would say. So yeah. And then I've been all over doing all the different kinds of things, multiple careers.
Well, I would say I noticed a trend, at least with those 2 jobs there, of like, oh, I've done this thing and I love it. I'm going to work there now.
Pretty much. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So what does the run club look like? Like, what is, I mean, you're doing all of those training sort of things. So I know you just began here at the beginning of January. And here in Cincinnati, we have 2 big races at the beginning of the year. We have the Heart Mini with the American Heart Association. That's the beginning of March. And the Flying Pig, which is multiple races. And that happens minus the COVID years, typically happens in May. So then, you know, I know there's just so many different groups of there's interval running, walking, all of those things. So it's like in the past week, because everything just started just about a week or so ago, right?
Yes, yes.
Like, does everybody just show up of like scared? I don't know what to do. What's happening? Like,
Pretty much.
like what happens like when you show up, and how do you guys get running?
Right. So we do, we have our veterans who have been running forever, which is great. And so I really rely on them to like kind of calm the newbies down, because there's a lot of people that, I mean, one, if you've never trained with a group, it's kind of intimidating, and you show up to the stores and you're like, oh my gosh, there's all these people. Where do I go? What do I do? So we have different pace groups, and we help you find the right pace that you need to run in or walk in. And so we've got pace group leaders who are in charge of those paces. And so what's nice is that we do have a racing team. So those are our super fast, like Boston qualifier people. And then we've got people who just naturally run fast, which is not me.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, right. Like so anywhere from like an 8-minute mile all the way down to walking. And so there is guaranteed some pace that you'll be able to do within our group. So even if you're just sitting around and haven't been active, we've got the No Boundaries group, which does the 5K, 10K program. And so that I suggest that all the time for folks who it's very similar to like a Couch to 5K program. So I want to set you up for success. So we've had a couple people who are like, I'm going to go do this marathon. Awesome. What's your training look like? Never done anything. Sit on the couch. I'm like, probably not the best idea. Like, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
You can't go from couch to marathon. I mean, I guess you could, but let's be smart.
Yeah, right.
So I usually say, okay, let's set a very achievable goal. It's kind of like when Dave Ramsey does the credit card debt, right? You don't go for the biggest expense that you try to pay down. You try to pay down like the smaller expenses. That way it's tangible. You feel good. So if you want to do a marathon, awesome. Let's put that on your radar somewhere down the road, but let's get you to that 5K. Let's get those endorphins running. Let's show you how you can train properly without injury to get to that 5K. You did the 5K, awesome. Let's get you to the 10K. Let's move you up in steps versus 0 to a marathon, and then you can't figure out why you're hitting a wall. You know, like, because it's going to happen. You've got to, like, you can't just, normal people can't go out and do that normally.
There's many medals to achieve before you get to that marathon medal.
Yes, and everybody likes the medal.
I mean, do it all for the bling,
That's
baby.
right. That's right. Medals and T-shirts.
Well, you recently just told me that you could train to walk the full.
Yes.
And I did not know that. That
Yes.
seems like that would take an aggressively long time.
I mean, I think the Flying Pig cutoff is 7 hours, but if you're clipping, like 16, 18-minute mile for a walk, I mean, you could easily get that done.
How many people do you have in that group?
It depends. It varies. I will say I know we have one pace group leader out of our 50 West location that's training for the full, and she's a walker. And then there might be some that are in Oakley. I think all of our Blue Ash folks are doing halves, but don't quote me on that. But I mean, we've got at any given time somebody who's a walker who's doing a marathon.
Yeah. I mean, the most I've walked in a day, well, this, I would have to give some qualifier in here. It was the day I ran my first half marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran it, and I was living in Oregon at the time, but I flew to Nashville because I raised so much money for St. Jude, and it was a St. Jude run, and I went there, and I did not look at the elevation. Oh, gosh. And I'm like, Nashville's going to be flat.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yep.
So, but I ran that half.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran that. And then I had a friend that I went to high school with that like drove down from St. Louis, and then we bar hopped and everything. So total that day I did 24 miles.
Oh, wow.
With walking and then 13 of those miles running. So, I mean, that's the most I've technically, even out of all the hikes and everything that I've done in one day.
Yeah.
And that the next day was painful.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man, and I love to walk and I love walking long distance, but I'm like, just walking 26 miles. I'm like, I don't know how my hips would get through that. That seems like it would get real boring. I'm like, my headphones would die. So I'm like, I'm tempted just because I've never done a full before, but I'm like, ooh, that's probably going to take me every bit of those 7 hours. That's a long day.
It is. I mean, and you think about it's such a great accomplishment for fast runners, right? Because you can go out there and, I mean, they can get a marathon done in under 4 hours. Amazing, right? But then you've got the walkers who are out there literally all day walking. And that's just as amazing to me as anything else because one, that's, I mean, stamina and it's mental toughness and it's all of those things.
Yeah.
Like to be out and to constantly be walking at that clip for, 7 hours is just amazing. I will say, like, if you decide to ever do one, like, you need to do the pig, because the full pig is, I mean, you've got crowd support, and that gets you through so much.
Well, that's what's so amazing. And that's why I personally love being a walker, especially like in Queen Bee, the pig, and, you know, the mini here in Cincinnati. Is because I was still running by the time I moved here, and I had done the 3-way with extra cheese twice, and that was my very last run that I did was the Thanksgiving Day 10K, and it's funny because my knee was so trash at that point, but I still PR'd.
Oh my gosh!
So I'm like, I PR'd on my very last run, but like walking, and I this is where it's just like I cannot express this message enough. Is that people don't do races like this. I'm not a runner, even if it's a 5K or whatever distance of like, well, I don't run, like walk them.
Yeah.
And, or people will even like give you this qualifier, like, well, I just walked, or I just did intervals. Like, what do you mean just?
Yes.
Like you got out and moved your body.
Yes.
Like nobody is trash talking to you because you walked instead of ran, because if somebody is, I guarantee you they didn't do a damn thing.
Exactly.
And so like walking them, especially like the pig, and doing the half of like, I have time to where I'm not so focused on just running. I'm like, I can read all the signs. I stop for the snacks. I pet all the dogs.
Yep.
I was just telling a client here at the gym this morning that I'm like, I don't know if the flying pig wants me to keep promoting this message, but I do. That I'm like, I will literally stop at that where the breakaway is at East Walnut Hills, where it splits between the half and the full track. Like, I'll go and get a cup of coffee. Like, I'm in the middle of a race, and I'm like, I'm going to walk in, I'm going to get coffee. I'm chill. I'll be on the phone. But it's like, it's my race. Yep. It's my experience. Yeah. And I love that. And I just hate that for some reason people just want to just throw away that walking doesn't count.
I agree. And I'm an interval runner. And so I it's one of those where I don't get offended. I don't know what the right word is, but it's when I hear somebody say, well, I didn't have to walk. I was able to run it all. Well, that's awesome, but don't discount what I do, because I do walk. Yeah. Because it's still, like you said, it's movement. And then you've got the walkers who are out there busting ass just like everybody else, if not more. Yeah. Like, because they didn't run, they're not worthy. Like, there's such a stigma in that, where I run slow. Well, your slow is probably my fast. Yeah. So that's where I'm like, and it's just a silly thing, right? Like, I don't know. It's just one of those, like, I think we're moving. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It does not matter.
Well, and there's even a thing too that, I've seen on social media of like people want to argue over the fight of like a runner versus a jogger. Yeah. Of like, oh my God. Yeah. Calm down. Right? Like, it's so dumb. Yeah. Yeah. And like, I will say, and again, like, just, I think there's just so much stuff that goes into running. And this is just a personal story. Side note here is because I did run so much. I started walking, and then with my, like, health and fitness journey. And then I did a Couch to 5K podcast, but I do wish I would have had a running group, one, to make sure my form was correctly, to ask questions instead of going out there. And I did injure myself a lot because I just didn't know any better. Right. But I was at a Christmas party, at a work Christmas party. This is when I was in Oregon. And I was actually talking with the salespeople that I had not really talked to that much. And I was telling him, like, oh, I'm doing this like Christmas 5K and stuff like that. And he goes, oh, you're a runner? I didn't know that. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, runners are normally thin. And I'm like,
oh, nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just like, God, like, people will just say whatever is just on their brain. Yes. And so then like, that's in my head, even though I think this dude's a douche. But it's like, but it's like those sorts of things of like, when you're saying that of like, oh, when I just walked, or you're disqualifying those things, you don't know what kind of feelings that's sparking for someone else. Absolutely. Or saying those sort of things of just, I don't know, that sort of stuff just bothers me. Or even, like, we met through my friend Ray, who I worked with at the radio station, and I met him before he started running at all. Yeah. And then he started training with Fleet Feet, which he said he's like met some of his best friends that way and loved the community. Yeah. And then he got up to the point where he did the half. Yeah. And even he would kind of do the qualifier of like, I interval run of like, yeah, that's badass. Yeah. Guess what? I am never going to run any bit of 26 miles. Right. So
yeah, no, I know. And the great thing about Fleet Feet in particular is that we're a diverse group of folks. So I think our oldest participant is in his 70s, and he runs like a 9-minute mile or something crazy. Like, dang. I can't do that, and he is amazing. And then we've got younger folks too in their 20s, young professionals that, you know, and maybe they're walking or doing intervals because they're just now getting into it. So it's a diverse group of crowds. We've got a flying pig streaker. And what that is somebody who has done the marathon every year since its inception. Dang. And he's a wealth of knowledge. And he actually is in Hawaii this weekend, and he has completed his 50th full marathon.
Oh my gosh.
In every state. So, I mean, like,
that's insane.
I love running with him because I'm like, what, tell me what's all your tips? What do you have? You know? So yeah, it's just a diverse group of people, all ages, all shapes, all colors. Like, we're just out there moving.
Yeah.
You know, I have no intention to ever Boston qualify. I feel like I might age into it. And there's this one little snippet that I've seen in a video replay where this little old lady is crossing the Boston marathon finish line, and she's old, and her husband meets her with a dozen red roses. And I keep telling my husband, I'm like, that'll be me. I may be like 99, but that may be the only way I get into Boston. So, I don't aspire to be fast. I just aspire to move and inspire other people to move.
Yeah.
And it's you know, my mom had some heart issues a few years ago, and as she was lying in the hospital bed about to go get stents put in, she goes, "You need to be more active." And I was like, "Why do you think I run?" Like,
yeah.
It's, you know, stress relief for one, but yeah, I want to be healthy, and I want my kids to model that behavior as well. And so, you know, we'll take our 13-year-old out for a 1-mile walk or a ruck. We've been doing that lately because my husband hates running, and we'll do weighted backpack walking. Yeah. And so just movement. There's things to do other than watch TV or play video games.
Yeah.
So
and that's what I think is so awesome about doing like a group, which I've never done that before. I've never done a running club. But like, just want to watch my form and if I'm doing those things correctly, because I've injured myself a lot just because, and then I didn't know when to stop. Like, hey, this is hurting, and there's nobody really there to be like, hey, describe to me your pain and do all of that. Right. So you have that, and just also to kind of build in a friend group, but then also too, like then, and this is kind of where we kind of struck a partnership with the gym here, is because I also, when I was doing all of that, I was not doing any sort of cross training. Right. I was just doing nothing but run. I was in charge of creating my run schedule, which was way too much. Oh yeah. I was doing every other day, and the days that I wasn't running, I was walking 10 to 15 miles. Oh my goodness. I mean, it was aggressive. Yeah. But I also like lived in Oregon. So I did a morning show. I get off the air, and then I'd either put on a pack and go hike up a mountain, or I would go and run. Yeah. And so there is like somebody being like, hey, this is what the spacing should look like. Here's like where, like, this is what mileage you should do today and build up. It was just me kind of making it up in my own head. Yes. And that just led to the point now where, you know, I've had multiple doctors advise me not to run anymore. And it's like, well, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy the bling from doing the races. Yeah. But I just like that I can just go out my front door and go. And I love running outside. I hate treadmills. Yes. But it's like, if I could go back, if I had somebody to kind of guide me through that more, things would be different.
Oh, for sure. And I'll say what even started our half marathon journey, or mine, is my husband and I are uber competitive. And I have to always preface it that he is 3 years older than I am. So he started his 40-year bucket list. So of course I'm like, yeah, I'm in. It's not my 40th, but I'll participate in your bucket list. And one was to run a full marathon. And I was like, whew, that's aggressive. I knew nothing of run clubs. I knew nothing of running. I was just like, okay, marathon's on his list. By God, we're doing it. So we found some like training program online that we just printed off the schedule, and I hung it up on a poster board in our kitchen, and we would just mark off like, okay, we're supposed to run this many miles or whatever that day. So we'd go out, and of course, this is like, our goal was Flying Pig Marathon. I mean, I remember in January, we've got this Lunken Airport, which is an open field, and there's like a track around it, and it's snowing, and we had taken a one of the punching bags, and we're doing like these, pulling the punching bag just for like cross training stuff, because we knew we needed to do something other than run. So anyway, long story short, he ends up getting the flu that year, and I wasn't going to run by myself because that's awful. And but I did, because he couldn't run. He wasn't feeling well. And I just kept it up. And I thought, there's no way I can do a full by myself. And so I remember I think I registered on the last day to register. And I had it pulled up on the internet, and I was like, okay, am I registering 1 or 2 for the half marathon? And he just looks at me and I go, you son of a bitch, and hit 1. So then I did it myself, and it was horrible because I had I didn't know I was supposed to train hills. I had no idea what I was doing. I was going out running. I was essentially doing intervals, but didn't know what intervals were. So I was running until I couldn't run anymore and I needed to stop. And then I would be like, okay, I'm walking and I feel like I could run again. So then I would start running. I had no idea what I was doing. And so I did that another year because I'm an idiot. And then I ended up finding Fleet Feet through another job that I was doing for it. There was like a charity partnership. So I was like, okay, I'll go do this run club, whatever. And I remember showing up and I'm in this group and I was pissed because it was intervals. And I'm like, I don't want to do intervals because the whole I don't want to walk. I want to run it all. And throughout the training, I'm like, I usually walk anyway, so why not time the walk and then it all evens out, right? And then these pace group leaders wouldn't shut up and they kept talking to me. And then all the people in my group were talking to me. I'm like, I don't know what you all are talking about, but you all need to shut up because I need to focus on this stupid run because it's awful. And then I loved it and I loved them and I looked forward to seeing them and it held that accountability. And they could tell me okay, you need to do this in walking when you're transitioning from running, which I never knew. And then I loved it so much that in that fall, I became a pace group leader. And then I loved it so much that I started working at Fleet Feet. But the group running, it makes the Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. so much nicer because you're out there. This past Saturday was so cold. I mean, it was 10 degrees or something. And we had people out there because they were running with their friends. And misery loves company. So let's all go run out in the cold and hold each other accountable, which is awesome. And then
go have a drink afterwards.
Exactly. Right. But we do have an interval group that does bring Fireball and puts it in their hot cocoa when they get back. So, hey, whatever works for you. But we're such a close knit family. We've had participants get married. So I've gone to weddings for that. We've had participants. One of my favorite stories was a woman whose mom's actual bucket list was the half pig, and she ended up dying of cancer. The daughter took her mom's bucket list and tried to complete it for her. She did the half. I got to train with her, and then her now husband proposed as she finished. And now,
my God,
they've gone on and had 2 babies. They're like family, And then I've had friends who have lost loved ones, and so you're there for. It's every family emotion that you have that you just become interlaced, and it's just their successes are your successes, and you're there to pick them up, and it's just you care about these people. You want them to do well.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that even just I was unaware of a running club until my friend Ray was doing it. Where it's especially Fleet Feet. I mean, Fleet Feet's a national brand. It's it's a shoe store. Yeah. It's to hear all of these stories of oh no, no, there's community and there's all these different things, and it's more than just getting an app on your phone and getting after it. There's just so much more to that. And I think so many people, especially through COVID, are looking way more into running because you can just go outside. You do it by yourself. You don't have to have a gym membership and things like that. But it's it's better to do it in a way where it's safer. You have somebody helping you. And then also just, the accountability, all of those things where that just seems such a fun way to do it. People go join CrossFit gyms for the community. Right. And things like that. And I think that's, especially if you're a brand new runner. Just we're sharing the journeys of Tanya, who's training for the Heart Mini, and my friend Toria. And Toria's never run a race before. And this was her first running group. And it's funny because I forgot that she was doing the group was it Tuesday night? Yeah. And I missed her phone call and I'm like, oh no, is something wrong? Yeah. And I text her. I'm like, once I saw it, I'm like, I missed your call. Is everything okay? She's like, I just had to call you and tell you how much I love the running group. And it was so much fun. And it was so great. And I met some cool new people and I felt really good. And I joined the right pace group. And I'm like, oh, yay. Yes. So it's really exciting to be okay. And for her, she's going to be on the podcast and discuss this, but she's a new mom. Right. And so it's just kind of well, it's cool to have goals and I want to move my body. And it's
Yeah.
also kind of gives me like me time
Yes.
outside of just baby time.
Yes.
So it's like there's just so much to it where, again, like kind of like we both did of like, well, we can kind of just figure it out and jump out on our own. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
So much better with a group.
Yeah.
Somebody one to hold you accountable, because I mean, you get sucked in and they like you missed today. Where were you? Are you okay? Like you start exchanging text messages and like, I can't wait to see you. And, or, I'm going to be out of town, but okay, make sure you get your miles in. And I mean, it's such a great group of folks that, they are truly, truly a family. So, and it was so cute. I saw her Tuesday night and I ended up, one of our mentors for No Boundaries, had a work event. So I had to take one of the participants out, and Toria came up and she goes, "Are you the one that I've been emailing back and forth?" I'm like, "I don't know. What's your name?" And she goes, "Toria." And I'm like, "Yes, it's Toria." I'm like, "I'm so glad you're here." And so like, I was doing a little cheer for her. And so I love it. I love all the people that are established and have been with us forever, but also I love that new runner that's new to the group, because I'm like, I want you to see how awesome this is and the awesomeness that I came from in 2015 that sucked me in so much that I work here now. So
Yeah.
I just want everybody to just do it well and love the journey and just be part of it.
so after the races, do you guys all rage?
We do. We do. I will say though, like the other two coaches and myself, we have like a post pig party on the Monday after the race. And there was one, it must have been 2019. We're exhausted. So for those who have never done the flying pig, it's one of the biggest, it's the biggest race in Cincinnati. So you have like the expo where you go and you can buy all the running stuff and like pick up your packet and all that. Well, us as coaches, we set up the expo like the day before the expo starts. So we're there Thursday setting up. Then we work the expo Friday. And then Saturday, we go and cheer the 5K, 10K people on, go back to the expo and work it and tear down, and then go set up down like where our station is. So then that way all of the Fleet Feet folks can be together. And then we're out running with all the participants on Sunday. So we're exhausted, right? But we're so excited for everybody. So on that post-pig party Monday, we're all like, oh, like we just need a beer and just to sit down. And then like people want to come up and tell us a story. We're like, yes, tell us your stories. But can we sit down? Because we're so tired. So yes, we rage. We do rage. We sit down and rage. But yeah, it's awesome. I always say it's like when you have a kid who like graduates from, whatever, preschool, grade school, high school, these are my babies, and so to see them, especially the newbies who come in, they're like, holy crap, what have I done? Like, can I do this, whatever their goal is? And then to see them achieve that, like, yes, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's like, that's all like my pat on the back is like, yes, you did it. Like,
That's awesome.
nothing more. There's nothing better.
Well, and I feel like I can't have this conversation without asking about shoes.
Yes, of course.
Well, and so I think that, obviously you can go into a store and get those, get the correct shoe and everything. But then what is the difference between like a running shoe? Like when I was running, I didn't have like a quote unquote running shoe. And I don't know if that was right or wrong.
Right.
So I just feel like people are just kind of like, these are tennis shoes. Even if they're 10 years old and I mow the lawn in them, they work, I'm going to go run in them.
Right. Yeah. No, don't do that. I guess a couple of things. So before I even knew what Fleet Feet was, I would literally send my husband to the store, whichever, I don't care. And shamefully, I will say, I know he bought 2 pair at Meijer for me. So
Yeah.
it was
I've
one of
gotten
those,
some athletic clothes
right?
from Kroger before.
Okay,
so,
yeah. So it was one of those, I knew that good shoes cost a lot of money and I didn't want to know how much they cost, right? Because I'm like, because I'll talk myself out of it because it's running shoe. Like, I don't, just give me a shoe. So I would say, go to the store. You know what size I wear. I don't want to know about size, or I don't want to know about color or price. Just bring me home a pair. Luckily, he brought me home 2 very good pair. Now that I know what I'm doing, I look back at those shoes. I'm like, holy cow, he did good. I lucked out. But then I got fit at Fleet Feet, and then I was like, game changer, right? So we get the questions all the time. What's the best shoe for my thin foot or my fat foot or my thin heel or my big heel? Like, you got to come in and get fit. So we have this Fit ID process. It's a 3D scanner, and it'll scan your bare foot from the ankles down, and it kicks out all this information, and it's it's an overload of information, but we highlight certain things. Like we highlight your heel width because that matters. You don't want your heel slipping out of your shoe, or you don't want it too tight where it's rubbing and you get blisters. It'll analyze your arch profile because that's important if you have a high arch or a low arch. Also, your shoe size. It'll also analyze the width of your foot. So you take all those factors in, and then the outfitter will bring you shoes based on what they feel is going to fit your foot the best. And so that's a game changer.
Yeah.
And so in our store, all of the running shoes can be walking shoes as well. And so we have people come in all the time like, I don't run. I just need a good shoe. Perfect. Like any of these shoes here, you can do walking, running, CrossFit, whatever you want to do in them. So there's no, I mean, yes, there's differences. And I know lifters like a zero drop shoe sometimes they like to go barefoot.
Yeah.
Don't recommend that because then you could like drop weights on them. So there's different heel to toe, millimeter stack height, that type of thing that, I didn't know when I first started. Now that I've been in this for a while, I can tell a little bit of a difference. But for the average person just coming in that just needs a good pair of shoes, that's where you start. So,
Yeah. Well, then I know this is the part I'm very bad at. Like, or isn't each one have like a life of how many miles you put on it until you're supposed to get another one?
It does.
Yeah, blow right on past that. What is it? Isn't it like 200-300 miles or something?
It's 300 to 500.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's still better.
Yeah, it is. And also, I know people get frustrated with that sometimes.
Because it seems like a money grab.
It does, right? And it's totally not. And I will say that I have gotten to the point where I can put on a pair of my running shoes that I've, run in, and then I'll put a new pair on and I'm like, oh yeah, it's time. Or if that run or walk that you took, you've taken that same route and you're like, man, my knee kind of hurts right now. How old are your shoes?
Yeah.
So you'll start noticing little tweaks about that. But yeah, in your lifespan of your shoe, you'll get a little bit longer out of it if you only use it for that activity. So like my running shoes, I only run in. I don't go and lift in. I don't go to the grocery store in. Like those are my running shoes. If I'm working at the store, but I know I'm going to go run at night, then I'm wearing different shoes during my working hours on the sales floor than I am in my running shoes, just to extend that life. So
yeah, I'm bad at that. I just recently did. I have a pair because I pretty much only wear Brooks or Hoka's, and then I know I wear them too long, and I've had this pair of Brooks, and I saw there was a picture of me doing a race in them in like 2017. And I'm like, I gotta stop wearing these. So I purposely took them on a hike to get them muddy, to be like, stop it. Stop putting them on your feet.
That's right. That's right. We're always like, you can retire those as the lawn mowing shoe or the gardening shoe. And then I get to the point like, how many of those do I need? Like I'm never home to do either. So I don't need all those shoes. But yeah.
And that's where I have the different ones too. Like I wear my Hoka's, which was recommended to me from my physical therapist for when all the standing, like when I'm training at the gym and I'm not actually working out. They're really good for my low back.
Yes.
And plus they're just like walking on marshmallows.
Yes.
And so I wear my Hoka's when I'm just training, but if I'm exercising, then I'll switch into a Brooks.
Yeah.
If I'm going to go for a walk, I'm going to wear my Brooks and I'm not going to wear my Hoka's. So my Hoka's turn into like work athletic shoes versus that. So that's been a really good system for me too, or I can't even imagine trying to work out in Hoka's. I don't know if people do that, but I wouldn't,
Yeah.
I feel like it would wreck my calves.
Yeah. It's a lot of cushion underneath the foot, but also with that rocker that it has, it's a stable shoe for sure, but it's just kind of, for like lifting and stuff, it's almost like too much.
Yeah. Or even just like cardio.
Yes.
It's not comfortable
or
anymore.
Like some kind of circuit training or any of that kind of stuff, like where you're doing a lot of like side to side stuff. That's almost too much of a shoe.
Yeah. But I mean, I can get where they're an addiction because they come out with all the new colors and they look so cool. I mean, my feet are so jacked that I don't get to, me and my bunions don't get to really have the coolest shoes.
I know.
But I'm like, they're so, like the ones you're wearing today are super cool.
Oh, I know.
They're super colorful.
I know. I love it. I always say that, since I'm not fast, I try to get the brightest shoes so that I look fast.
Oh, nice.
That's my theory.
So if somebody in Cincinnati and they're interested in running club or even like coming to a location, like where can they find you the most? Where are you kind of
Oh my
at?
gosh, I'm all over the place, usually setting up for running clubs. So, but if you want information on the running club, it's on our website and it's just Fleet Feet Cincinnati with a Y.com. And then up on the upper part of the website, it'll have like events and that type of stuff. You just want to go to run group and then scroll down and then you can pick from whichever one, like if you want to do the 5K, 10K group or the half full group and click on there. But it's a 17-week program. We tell you what you should be doing when you're not training with us. And it also includes CrossFit. So, go see Amanda and the folks at Cincy 360 Fitness. But we pretty much tell you all kinds of stuff. We do nutrition tips and because that's a whole nother. Oh, gosh. My nutrition has evolved. And even like when I was marathon training, how that's evolved from like half marathon training and trying to tell my body now, like, you're not full marathon training. You don't need all the food right now.
Yeah.
But the body's like, feed me. And I'm like, no, you're not doing all the miles anymore.
So if somebody, I don't know if you haven't, I'm putting you on the spot here. If somebody's not in Cincinnati, do you have anything else you would recommend if somebody wanted to start running?
So
like an app or even anything or a podcast or even just, I guess if they have a Fleet Feet in their area, do a Fleet Feet. But if they don't, is there anything else?
That's we do have some people and actually our program was always so good that when we had COVID and we had to train virtually, we were able to instantly switch to that, right? I mean, it takes away the community and the group part of it, but you're getting the weekly newsletter, you're getting the schedule, you're getting the 17-week program. So if you're someplace else and you're highly motivated and don't need a group, I mean, you could definitely, register to train with us or another Fleet Feet that's got a training program that's not, or that is closer to you. And then that way you're paying for the knowledge and that type of thing. You just have to go out and do it on your own. But I know there's run groups all over, and I'm sure there's apps as well. So I just don't know if any.
Yeah, that's why I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I figured I'd ask.
I don't know.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm super excited for all the things that we're going to be doing together for the next few months of just sharing the journey of Toria and Tanya on the podcast and from them running Toria with the 10K and Tanya doing the 15K and and then I walk them, so I'll see you there and I'll be last in line with the cop cars. And just thank you for everything and all the good information, and thanks for coming back on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
AmandaValentineBites.com